What is up, y'all, and welcome into the On the Bluff podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Kuhn. Alongside me, co-hosting Kenny Stubblefield. Obviously, if you're seeing us or you're hearing us, no Christian Fowler tonight. He'll be back in the saddle next week. But Kenny, what's happening, brother?
My brother, it is hot.
Oh, yeah.
Outside.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Let me ask you this. As a fellow big guy,
Yeah.
I mean, does this just like take years off your life, this heat?
Honestly, I feel like it gives it back because I'm sweating and probably burning fat, when I'm, maybe a little bit more. I don't know hot versus cold where you burn more fat, but I do sweat and lose weight. So I consider it a positive thing, but it hurts me deep in my soul.
It's tough outside right now. I mowed the yard on Saturday, and let me tell you,
your under tit sweat was crazy. I bet.
Crazy. Well, let me tell you, I got up early on Saturday, and Sayla and I went to the gym to go work out. She's got volleyball training camp coming up in July, so she's on the grind. She's hustling. She's getting after it.
Right.
Did her first. She's 13 years old and was doing squats for the first time this week. And I mean, so she's really getting after it. We got a good workout in. And I get home, and my plan was the whole day was, you know what? I'm going to come home. I'm going to work a little bit, hang out, watch some sports on TV, watch some golf, whatever. And then I'll mow the yard when the heat breaks just a little bit, right? Like about 4:30, maybe 5.
Right.
Got about 3 more hours of good sunlight. I'll get out there and mow the yard. Well, I get home and Tracy's like, "It's gonna rain tonight. If you're gonna mow the yard, you need to do it right now." And I was like, "Oh God!" So I got out there in the heat of the day at noon.
Well, should you just wait till it rains and it blooms and then cut it?
Well, the problem is I had to do that last weekend, and so it was sky high, the grass. Like it was like you either cut it today or the police are going to start showing up at your front door.
That HOA out in Collierville is going to come get your ass.
Looking for like dead bodies and stuff inside there. Like it was getting high, and so I was like, I got to do it. Like it's got to happen today. So let me just suffer through this. It took me, I live on a pretty big, like I got about 1.5 acres that I have to cut, that I push mow.
Yeah.
And it took me 6 hours to cut the entire thing on Saturday afternoon. I went from 12 to 6, and guess what? It didn't rain a lick on Saturday. So it was
6 hours.
Well, I took a lot of breaks. I took a lot of breaks.
Wait, is this front and backyard?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've seen your backyard. I don't think that would take 6 hours on its own.
No. No, it's front yard.
Okay. All right. Unless you're just overwhelmingly slow.
Well,
which could happen in this heat.
In this heat, I was overwhelmingly slow. Yes.
Yeah. I had a first over the weekend.
We
lost power on Saturday night going into Sunday because our neighbors they have a big ass tree in their backyard, and a limb broke and nailed our power lines. So my little square block, it's like 8 houses, all went out of power. And MLGW didn't respond fast because it's so remote, the problem. So they didn't get there till like 2:30. And I find them, like the power lines that broke down are on my tree line.
Oh, no.
They climbed up above my, like right there on my fence line, and put them back together. Got it all back on by like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Oh my gosh, man.
So that was a first. Like usually if power goes out, it's like something way down the street from me, far away. This one was literally in my backyard.
Oh no. So how many houses were impacted by it?
It's just eight.
Well, you would think
that's why it took so long for them to get there.
100%.
This happened at like 7 p.m. and they didn't get there till like 2:30.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's like there's not enough affected houses.
Yeah. So it was like
way down on that queue list.
They're like, man, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not our first issue right now.
Yes, not our first priority.
I'm not kidding you. Right on my fence line. Here these guys are screaming at each other, the linemen, at like 2:30 a.m.
Oh,
I was scared shitless too when I walked outside. I'm like, who the hell is him? Oh, okay. All right. I see the lights.
You guys are good.
I climbed up there. I'm like, all right, we're good. We're good. Keep doing what you're doing.
I bet they got scared when they saw you come walking out the house.
Like, no, okay. Can we be honest, Kenny? I am not. halfway, just scared awake Gabe with his shirt off and his boxers on is the least intimidating person ever, because I don't have my glasses on even. I'm squinting to see what's going on outside. My hair is all float around everywhere.
Well, yeah, but you're also 6'4", like 300 pounds.
It's like I don't know. I'm not a very intimidating guy at that point. I'm not worth anything.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that
particular situation.
Yeah.
It's just
maybe.
Yeah,
I would believe it.
I would compare it to a bear hibernating, but a bear is way scarier than that. So I don't even know how I'd put it, but it's okay. It's like never mind. I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that there.
So we don't get canceled.
It was a crazy weekend, though.
Was it,
man? It's a crazy weekend.
Yeah.
And I hate to start with bad news today, but we got some really devastating, tough news for the city of Memphis and the Smith family on Saturday night. And that's that FedEx founder, Memphian, Fred Smith, passed away at 80. I'm gonna be honest, like my first reaction to it, and I think this is most people's first reaction, because like with somebody that's just like larger than life that you don't even see all that often, you don't know what's going on health wise. Like it was just shock. It's like I had no idea anything was going on. I don't even know if the family knew if there was anything health wise going on. He was at a conference of some sort about a week and a half ago, like 10 days ago. Like he's been out and about. So that shock was just insane to me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
Tracy, you feel like a guy like that. It's almost like at times you just feel like they're immortal because they're larger than life. They're untouchable, but it happens to all of us. But then, once the shock settled down, I think most people are also like this. You just felt like this insane, this thankful feeling for what he's been able to bring the city of Memphis, to provide us with, picking FedEx's or Memphis as FedEx's home, the amount he's poured into the community, the amount of jobs he's given back. And even with him passing, the reason you feel so thankful is that we're still in good hands, because the family still has their hands on it. Richard doing his thing. So that's how I felt, quite frankly. But there still is that kind of feeling in the back of your head of like, what now?
Yeah.
Like, Fred's not here anymore. It's just, it's a strange feeling. It's like a void.
Yeah. And it's interesting. My wife works for FedEx. She's been at FedEx for almost 2 decades now. And we got the news, I guess, right when it was announced, through her connections, I guess, at FedEx. It started making its way through the FedEx, hub and all this, or not the hub, but the, I guess their portal that they use to communicate.
Yeah.
And, she obviously reacted very strongly. And it's so interesting because especially on my, I don't know if you have, I had my time in the Memphis hub. Like I worked in the hub, in the FedEx hub for a while. And so there's that connection, but for my wife's side of the family, their entire lineage has been impacted by FedEx. Like my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my father-in-law, Tracy, cousins, all that kind of stuff have all worked for FedEx. And it is super interesting when, obviously, he is who he is. He's a larger than life personality, but the loyalty and the feelings, I think, that most people that probably never have even met Fred Smith that work at FedEx feel towards Fred Smith is pretty insane. Like it's awesome. And so when the news broke, the reaction was of somebody like a family member passed away.
Right.
And but then you're right. Like, so when you automatically grieve immediately, you respond like as if a family member passed away. Then you take a step back and say, what would Memphis be without Fred Smith?
Real talk.
And you just go, this is a huge, like, momentous, like, crazy moment for the city, right? Like, and just what Fred Smith meant to the city of Memphis is pretty insane, Gabe.
Yeah, it's hard to describe
Yeah.
like the full magnitude, but the way I would put it is I think he's the most important Memphian that has ever graced the city with his presence, quite frankly. Just an inordinate amount of families helped, an inordinate amount of jobs that he created for this city.
Yeah.
And an inordinate amount of money going to St. Jude. I heard it was 80 million.
Yeah.
80 million is the latest number there. And it may be even more than that. The various sport, I mean, that's what we are involved in, like the various sports programs and franchises that he's helped along the way. And what's so different about him is he didn't need credit for it, really. Like he would get credit because that money's coming from Fred and FedEx. But you don't see a lot of things named, the Fred Smith Liberty Bowl, the Fred Smith FedEx Forum. You don't see that.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see that going forward. And I really hope that the University of Memphis does something. I know Simmons Bank has the naming rights at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, but I hope they do something to honor him. I mean, the guy just before passing threw $50 million into the renovations at the Liberty Bowl. So I hope they do something with that. But like the legacy he's leaving behind, like obviously an unbelievable life. 2 tours in Vietnam, a Purple Heart, wounded twice in the line of duty, gets back, Yale graduate, starts FedEx, and just becomes a billionaire at that point. And then like the stories along the way, the $5,000 for the fuel he needed to keep the company alive, turning that into $27,000 at a blackjack table to be able to keep the thing alive. And then my favorite story, and Jeff Calkins was talking about this, and I was familiar with the story, but the way he brought it up, I wasn't familiar with exactly what he wrote about. I always heard about his business plan when he was at Yale, and him
I love this story so much.
Not getting like a perfect A.
He got a C.
But he wrote up his business plan exactly how he executed it with FedEx.
Yeah.
In a essay or whatever the hell he was turning in, and he got a C+ on the damn thing. I want to go back to Yale, and like Yale at this point needs to go back in time and amend that grade to an A+.
Posthumously go, okay, A+++++++.
But also the part of his legacy that I'll remember is the fact that it's like, not only did he not need credit, he was a guy who, there's a lot of billionaires and business owners that have become successful in whatever venture they go into. I think we see some, way too close to the top ranks of the country right now, but that's beyond the point. They'll get all that money and they hoard it for themselves. They're greedy. They don't want to pour it into anything other than their business or themselves. And when it came to Fred, it was always about making this particular community better. Whether it was trying to get Memphis into a different conference, whether it was, funding FedEx Forum, funding Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, donating to St. Jude, donating to LeBron, or doing all these different things. The golf tournament. Yeah. Like it was always about, how can I affect this community and other people, not just my immediate family, myself, and my business. It was always about outreach, which you got to give him credit for. Just remarkable life lived, and he'll be missed.
He will be missed, man. It's I think you just put it perfectly, and I don't really have anything to add other than just, it's not even just the philanthropy that he showed with his own money, but it's the culture in which he created at FedEx that does the same thing, right? Like the company that is FedEx has taken a hold of that same kind of philanthropic mentality that their chairman and CEO and founder, instilled early on. And they do the same thing in the city of Memphis. And so when you talked about earlier, there's a level of sadness, but a level of security knowing that, yeah, Memphis is going to be all right. Like we're going to be fine. Like, because FedEx is still here. And I just love the out the mud type story that he had, like that he, brought to the table. Like when he started FedEx, like the idea of going to this prestigious school like Yale and getting a C+ on a business proposal of like, hey, let's create one central hub in the central part of the United States of America, send every package to that place and then ship them out the same night. Like, what an interesting concept. And the fact that he didn't allow that C+ to stop him. And he said, you know what, I'm going to keep doing it. And now look at what it's turned into, right? Like, you don't, nobody says I'm going to UPS this. They say, hey, you going to FedEx that to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
100%.
So
100%.
It's just such a beautiful story. And, man, I can't even fathom, what Memphis would look like without the Smith family and without Fred Smith in particular. So just, my condolences to the family, man.
And sidebar, kind of tongue in cheek, whenever I'm sending mail or shipping a package, I go to FedEx. I've been to UPS. I've been to the post office.
Of course.
By far, FedEx has the best customer service. It's not even close. Like, you go to the post office and it's like you are the worst. And I know they're government employees. It's like you're the worst human being for taking up their time and asking questions. You go to
How
UPS,
dare you?
Same exact thing. You go to FedEx and they're like, oh, I'll just pack it up for you. I'll pack it up for you. Yeah. I'll scan this. You'll be out of here in about 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Take down all your information.
Good.
Love FedEx's customer service. Unbelievable. Now, one thing that Fred always wanted was for the University of Memphis to get to a bigger, better conference. We can go back to 2013.
Yeah.
When he tried to sponsor the football championship, the Big 12 championship, using FedEx. And he thought that would get Memphis into the Big 12. Obviously it didn't, but it's something that he always aimed for. Now, we talked about last week, Pete Thamel's article in ESPN about Memphis to the Pac-12 for football only, and then the Big East for every other sport, including men's basketball. Ed Scott recently said that the only thing that changed regarding Memphis to the Pac-12 was that Pete Thamel wrote an article. He also mentioned he would not step up to any substantive conversations with the Pac-12 until they had a media rights deal. Now, therein lies the update. Pac-12, as of last night, reached an agreement through 2030, 2031 with CBS Sports. CBS Sports will cover 3 football games per year and 3 men's basketball games per year, plus their championships in men's basketball and football. So they have one of their TV contracts ironed out. There should be multiple prongs, but it does lead me to the question, is Ed Scott going to resume his talks with the Pac-12?
I mean, based on everything that he has said, even from the day that he got the job, he's going to talk to everybody. Like anybody and everybody that will listen, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, like if he's saying specifically that one of the prerequisites to have a conversation with the Pac, whatever you want to call them now, is that they had to get their media rights deal done. Well, that's done now. And so I would suspect that there's been phone calls. I would hope that there's been phone calls, right? Like, how do you feel about it? Like, how? Because I know it was a large discussion on Tigers Untapped this past week. Their clip went crazy, and
I'll say this.
Talking about it. What are your thoughts on it? Would you do it?
Okay. I think you have to go look at the actual revenue that you'd be able to get generated. Now, With the CBS contract, the Pac-12 just signed through 2031. It's not really different than what the Mountain West has in place right now. Just one more game in men's basketball, one more game in men's football. In football. That's it. So unless there's other prongs to this TV deal, I don't know how much of an upgrade from a TV payout it will be from the AAC. Now, the real question would be at that point, okay, if it's not that much of an upgrade, $1 or $2 million more per year in football, a couple million more dollars in basketball when you go to the Big East, whatever it looks like, you'd have to ask yourself, okay, what are the chances we have to go play for championships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in football, do we have better access in the Pac-12 than in the AAC to go to the college football playoff? I would say probably yes, because you have way better football programs there. In basketball, how many more bids and how much more competitive is it going to be to where I can, get into the tournament without having to win a conference tournament? So like there's that. So you have to balance these things out. But if you're asking me just surface level, would I do it? Yes, just because the AAC is a dying, sinking ship. Now, I would almost liken it to this going to the Pac-12. It's like right now you're in a lifeboat, life raft that has a hole in it, and it's halfway underwater. Right, the Pac-12 is
a life raft,
but there's no hole in it. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference. Now, ultimately, you want to be on the damn boat, and that's the Big 12 or the ACC.
Right.
And hopefully that boat's not sinking, right? Yeah. The ACC may be sinking. We'll talk. We can elaborate on that at another date. But ultimately, you want to be on one of those boats. And here's what I will say: I've heard certain murmurs behind the scenes. Ed Scott's doing everything in his damn power to get the Big 12 on board with Memphis 100%. At some point. I don't know how that's working out. I can just say what I've been told, and that's that he has made numerous stops at numerous Big 12 destinations. That's all I can throw out there for the time being.
He threw a big Easter egg into his press conference he did for the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium renderings, which, by the way, look freaking ridiculous. Have you seen? Did you see that?
They look awesome. They look great. Bro. One thing I didn't think about when they first put out the renderings, though, is the home side now.
Yeah, is
going to have like a big it's going to be the.
Is that going to still be the home side? Or are they switching it?
I think they'll switch it ultimately.
They have to, don't they?
Yeah,
that's where
it's going to have to be designated different.
Yeah,
but it's been that way for a long time.
It's going to be weird, right?
The season ticket holders on the normal home side are going to be up in arms.
Yeah. I think based on the renderings and some things I saw on Twitter, there already are some season ticket holders are like, what the heck?
Yeah. But it still looks beautiful.
Oh my
like the
God,
landing.
Beautiful.
And it looks like there's going to be a couple of bars over there.
Yeah,
it looks
bro.
really. But renderings, I want to see the real thing. Renderings they only do so much for
that video the Memphis Athletic Department put out with the kind of flying through all of it was just phenomenal stuff. But in that press conference, he answered questions from the media, and one of the things that he said was, "There's been a whole lot of rumors and about what Memphis basketball's funding from revenue sharing is," and he clapped back. He has been dragged through the coals, on Twitter and all that kind of stuff by unnamed, anonymous Twitter accounts, which take that as you will, but and he came back and he said, if you don't think that we can compete, you're silly. And then he gave a comparison. He said the University of Kansas, the preeminent college basketball team in the country, the one that's in the Big 12 that you don't think we can compete with. This is what their revenue sharing is for Memphis or for basketball, and this is what Memphis's revenue sharing is.
And he said they're very comparable.
And they're very comparable. That wasn't on accident.
Which was basically 3.5 to 5.5 million. If you've listened to Kansas talk recently, what's been reported.
That wasn't on accident. If you had to put truth serum in Ed Scott right now and say, where do you want to end up? There is not a doubt in my mind that he would say, I'm doing everything I can possibly do to get Memphis into the Big 12, and not just football, but basketball and the Olympic sports.
Of course.
So the question that you have to ask is like, because this is what the big conversation was last week was, does Memphis sign a grant of rights to the Pac-12 when everybody and their mother is saying in 2030, college football, college sports as a whole will look drastically different, that it's going to go to a 2-tiered system, maybe a 3-tiered system where there's 70 teams that are in that tier 1 system based off of revenue sharing that will be competing for the championships, and especially in college football playoffs, right? College football playoff will look different. The conferences will look different. The SEC and the Big 12 are talking about creating these 2 super leagues where there's 50 teams apiece in both of those conferences. And so the question has been, does Memphis make that jump to the Pac-12, sign a grant of rights for X number of years, 8, 10, 12 years? Well, that question was answered this week, right? The initial grant of rights deal for the Pac-12 will be for 5 years, which leads you directly into 2030, where you're still a part of that conversation.
Can we be honest?
Yeah.
All of those teams, every single team in the Pac-12 wants to be a part of the big boys.
Yeah.
So like any grant of rights you're signing with the Pac-12, especially for football only, it's not going to be some long-term deal. I don't think anybody outside of the Power 4 structure right now fools themselves into thinking they are in their long-term solutions.
Right.
Right. They don't have any illusions of thinking that they're in their spot for life. So I think everybody in the Pac-12, maybe not the commissioner of the Pac-12, Tyrese Gould.
She seems to be very high on her conference. I'll just say
but
that.
I think everybody in the Pac-12, like, all the institutions are pretty self-aware, and they realize that this may not be the ultimate solution to get them where they want to go. So
Gabe, I have one last question.
I don't
for you.
listen, but point being, I wouldn't mind signing a grant of rights because I don't think that grant of rights would be. I mean, it's looking like 5 years, and
right.
that's not something that would keep me away from competing at the highest level in the meantime and getting out of this ridiculously horrid conference and maybe making a little more money along the way with TV revenue. So we'll see.
You said, and this is my last question for you, and I want to gauge your thoughts on this and see how much weight you put on this. You talk about joining the Pac-12, how much money would they make more? Like the TV revenue, the television deals, all those kinds of things. How much weight do you put behind the idea of signing the grant of rights to the Pac-12 just to get a fresh blood of opponents that might excite the fan base more? That might say, you know what?
But I mean, think about what you're saying for a second is the only thing I'd say back, because new, fresher opponents, more competition breeds more ticket sales, breeds more people in the stadium, means more fan engagement, means more merchandising. And ultimately, I think the TV deal will be at least slightly higher than the AAC. So ultimately, like if they were to make $10 million a year using their football TV revenue, I would jump at that, because right now they're not quite there. So it wouldn't be a dramatic.
What's it, like 7 million?
It wouldn't be a dramatic step up in TV revenue, but all the other things, I think the home revenue generated, the amount of people you get in the stadium, the fan engagement, like that to me is worth it.
I think
that
so too.
To me is worth it.
Because you're talking about,
and for me, in the end of the day, like perfect, we know is the Big 12, but like I'm a big believer in don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Yep.
And I think if you get into a situation where the Big 12 is not expanding right now, like go for the good option, right? Just go for that option there while it's on the table to get out of this dying, sinking boat of a conference that you're in that has no fresh ideas. The thing about the AAC that makes me so angry is they know they're bad. They know they're in a bad situation. Especially when the ESPN deal runs out, it's going to be a horrid situation.
Yeah.
But their ideas to make it better suck. They're horrible. Yeah. And I'm not even going after Pernetti because I think it's before him. I think we're talking to Resco too. And I liked Micah Resco for the longest time. But once he lost Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston, all bets were off. He had no good ideas from there.
Yeah.
Like the ideas now between Resco and Pernetti have been to bring in all the military academies.
Yep.
That does nothing for you.
Yeah.
Those are all football only situations anyway. It's just so dumb. Like, have you heard what would happen if, if they want to expand further? Do you know the next name that they want to bring in?
No,
Air Force, Kenny. Air
Come on.
Force.
Yeah, I heard that last year. Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here like, you guys, I know your hands are tied. I know you got your conference rated in a horrible way, right? But you guys are really bad at this thing. You really don't understand what you need to do to generate a more competitive conference. Like you come back with Charlotte and Rice and UTSA. Like what are these decisions, man? I know you don't have a bunch of different schools to choose from, but there had to be better options out there for you.
Well, and even on top
Coastal
of that,
Carolina and App State or something like that.
Yeah. Even on top of that, the military schools they're bringing in, especially in football, they're not even, or only in football, they're not even making those games against each other a part of the conference.
Yeah. They've bent the knee to them.
They've bent the knee to them and said basically like, hey, you guys, it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's what makes it worse is the fact that we know it's a sinking ship. And every time they make a decision, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Like I can't fathom how we're at this point. But
it's crazy.
Either way, it is what it is. Real quick, before we get to the hot three, I wanted to throw this in there.
Let's do it.
You know, it's NBA draft week. Snuck up on my ass. I will tell you that right now.
Did it really?
Up on Wednesday. Well, because the Grizzlies didn't have a pick. I wasn't tuned in, but I've had a little crash course.
No reason for you to be tuned in.
But the Grizzlies hold pick number 16. Let me ask you this before we get into names, Kenny.
Yeah.
Is it obvious what they should target? Because this is my opinion. You should go with find a wing.
Yeah.
Who at least has some defensive upside. Hopefully, if you can, find some shooting.
Yeah.
But I want to see a wing who can be an offensive connector and has some defensive upside. That's what I think you should target at number 16.
Yeah. No, I think if you are going to use that pick, which all signs are pointing to that, if you're going to use that pick, you absolutely go after number one criteria, best player available, and number two, somebody who's not small, right? So like go get a wing, go get you a forward, go get you if there's a big, if your guy from Duke, Malawash is available, go get him.
That ain't happening, but
it could be.
Sure, I guess.
You could be. But
I don't think Malawash ain't he's going top 10, brother.
I don't know. That would be 3 Duke players in the top 10 then. Because I think absolutely Khan is going in the top 5. Obviously Cooper and then Malawash. Like, but if someone like he's available, go for somebody with size, go for somebody that's and I think the number one criteria is best player available. But just someone with size, right? So that's my thought process.
I have a little short list for you. I'm going to run all these names by you. And I'll start from like 4 to 1.
Okay.
4 to 1. 4 being like, okay, this would be my least excited, although I like this pick. Nick Clifford would be my number 4, just because he's 24 years old, from Colorado State, 6'6", right around 215 pounds, 39% from 3, 19 points, 9 rebounds well for his size. He can handle the ball. He can do all those things. So, and he's a really good spot up shooter from 3. So I like that a little bit more, I wish, on the defensive end, although he's not terrible on that end.
Right.
But I think he could fit in as a nice sort of bench type, wing that you could immediatally use in his rookie season.
Because he's old.
He's been very experienced for a long time. Third, I'm going to go Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina. 6'9", big as hell, long, really good defensive upside. But here's my problem with him. I think he's a decent offensive player, but it's more slashing.
Yeah.
He can go back to the basket a little bit, like that type of thing. So it's a little bit weird. He can't shoot a lick. Can't shoot.
Probably won't ever be able to shoot a lick.
I don't ever see him being like an above 36% shooter. And I think like those would be spike years for him to get to 35.
Those would be good years.
He's like he's got sort of a wonky delivery as a lefty. It's kind of interesting, but that would be my third. Second, Liam McNeely from UConn. Tell me your thoughts. Let me know. I like him. I think there's a lot of upside there. 5-star prospect, 6'7".
Yeah.
Obviously, defense, we'll see. I think he'll be at least able to fit in. I think he can grow a 3-ball, and I think he's pretty offensively skilled. He's just young. And the problem with him is the developmental runway you'd have to have.
Well, the baked-in lack of athleticism is tough, right? Like he's just not the athletic guy.
Hey, he's sneaky athletic, dude. Come on.
Right. He has a high IQ, is what you're trying to say.
He's a real gym rat.
He's a real gym rat. His father was his head coach. Like that's isn't that the storylines around guys like Liam McNeely?
I don't know, man. I like the guy. I like the kid. He's 19 years old. I think he can grow into something.
Yeah. We're blessed to have a guy named Chip Williams Jr. who's on he's our draft expert, and he was on the $2 Sports Show this past week, and he comped Liam McNeely as Corey Kispert, and I'm like, meh, okay, like,
that's fine. To me, that's a second contract, $54 million man at this point. Like that's not terrible.
Right.
I would love that, honestly.
Okay.
I would be totally fine with that.
Yeah,
that's a starting caliber
starter in the NBA.
Yeah, potential.
No.
Corey Kispert has some game, brother. He's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean the comp is Corey Kispert. Not saying that
I love Chip. Chip does great work. We had to go white to white. It had to be white to white.
Yeah, I know, right? Is that kind of how it works?
Number one, and this is everybody's Washington State. I'm down with going back into the Washington State bag.
Yeah, you got Jalen Wells out of them. Yeah,
Cedric Coward, 17 points per game, 7 rebounds, 3.
What's his story?
39% from 3, and
I don't know anything about him.
He started as a D3 guy.
Okay.
Transferred into Eastern Washington, so very low D1, and then eventually got to Washington State his senior year, 17, 7, and 3, and then 39% from 3. And he's sort of the all-around two-way guy. He can play some defense too.
So I mean, I've heard everybody that is the name that everybody on Twitter is out there saying.
I have looked at about 10 mock drafts, and on 6 of them, the Grizzlies are taking Cedric Coward. So,
wow. Well, he was in Memphis today.
Can I be honest? He worked out with the team. He seems like the quintessential Zach Kleiman guy, 4-year college guy, late bloomer. 22 years old, has experience, highly productive. If you've heard the guy talk, you'd be like, oh my God, yeah, this is a Kleiman guy. Just an absolute dog. Yeah. Very well spoken. Has his thoughts together every time he's in front of a mic.
Yeah.
He just seems like the exact, if you were creating a wing for Zach Kleiman to draft in the 2025 NBA draft, Cedric Coward would be that lab creation.
Let me ask you this. Is there any part of you that's team don't use that pick, trade it away for as a part of a package for
if you had Cole Anthony in 16 I saw Malik Monk was out there, something like that. Okay, like something like that. If you're getting a decent target that's an experienced wing instead of picking a wing at 16, I'm all for it. I have seen the stupid idea out there, and I'm sorry, Grizzlies fans, you overthink everything. I'm telling you right now. I've seen the dumbest possible idea of packaging stuff together with number 16 to trade up in this draft to take Con Knipple. I mean, he would be a great fit, but like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Why would the Grizzlies go out of their way to trade up in this draft? I don't, unless it was for freaking Cooper Flag.
Yeah, Dallas
first overall pick.
Hit Nico up and be like, "Hey, Adam Silver wants you to trade us the first pick in the draft."
Yeah, I don't.
Apparently that worked last time.
If we're ranking what I think will happen versus what I also want to happen, I'd say 1, just use the 16th pick on Cedric Coward.
Okay.
Number 2, you could package it with Cole Anthony and go find a useful, experienced veteran piece.
Yeah.
And then space. And then number 10, I'd throw. I'd throw.
Right.
The last thing I want to happen is for them to package things up to trade up to number 4 or 5, whatever the hell.
Somewhere in between option number 2 and the option to trade up in the draft is just don't use that draft pick at all. Just don't call it in and lose it.
Just
right?
let the clock run out.
Let the clock run out and don't use it. Right. Like, but I am, it is so funny to me how for this entire offseason and even like at the beginning, at the end of the season, when the Grizzlies started to kind of go down that stretch of having, going from the 2 seed in the Western Conference to having to fight for their lives in the play-in games, is this idea of the being unintentionally young, which is what Zach Kleiman said at the draft deadline or the trade deadline. He said we got unintentionally young, and I go and you just saw Grizzlies fans going, yeah, Zach, don't do that again. Your job's on the line. Now they want to
sink assets into.
And now they want to sink assets into this draft and go up. And I'm like, okay, like that doesn't make sense to me. Like I get the idea. Like I'm a firm believer, Gabe, that especially in the city of Memphis, especially for the Memphis Grizzlies franchise, you have to keep that pipeline of draft targets available. You need those team-controlled 4-year rookie contract players that can be a part of the pipeline of keeping young talent in your program. Because unfortunately, the Grizzlies are only really able to build their roster through through trades and through the draft. The free agents very rarely come here. You can base it on whatever reason you want. Just don't agree with Stephen A. Smith on it. And I just go, so I'm not an opponent of like using that draft pick and picking somebody in that 16th pick, but I just don't understand when you give up one of your core 3 guys with a contract that had, if you listen to a lot of NBA guys say had negative trade value, Gabe, you turn that negative trade value contract into 4 first-round picks, 2 players, and a pick swap. Then you use one of those picks that you get and you sink it into a young rookie again. I don't understand why people are a proponent of that. You take that 16th pick and you use it and you pick a good player and he sits on the bench or goes to South Haven, right? Like that's my thought process. And you develop him and you grow him and you maybe in a couple of years you use them. But to sink assets into a rookie just seems like we're talking about stuff that needed to happen 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and not right now when literally everybody's job is on the line. Zach Kleiman's job is on the line. Do you want to trust Con Knipple or do you want to trust somebody else who's got veteran experience, somebody who's got...
I would listen. I'd be totally fine with that if they package Cole Anthony in 16 to go get something. But I'll be the one to say, like, Kenny, I get where you're coming from. And I know what Zach Kleiman has said. I don't think it's that big a deal to pick at 16.
No, 100%.
But I think it's just egregious, to your point, to talk about trading up for a bigger fish in the draft.
That's what I'm concerned about.
If I am trading, I'm trading for an experienced player.
Yeah, I'm right there.
And to me, I gotta imagine, based on what Zach Kleiman has said, that's exactly his thought process too. I don't think there's any way in the world he trades up in this draft using 16.
Please don't.
And if he does, shit, we'll be the first ones on here bagging him. I promise you.
Unless he gets Cooper Flag. Then I'm down. I'm cool. Go for it.
What I honestly, I'm not a big, I don't know that, like, trade rules. I know it's like salary matching and all that. What would it take to trade up to number 1 in this year's draft?
Jesus,
I don't know. Is there a price high enough for
mean,
the Mavs to move off the number 1 pick?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could figure out a way to make that happen, but
could you trade like a star for number 1 overall? Is that possible because of salaries and everything? Like, how would that work?
I have no clue. I wish I knew more about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what would the price even have to be?
We need to call Parker Fleming. Where's Parker?
Yeah. And by the way, he just published his draft guide out there. I know he's doing his own thing, but his Parker's NBA draft guide, it rips. It's so detail oriented and so good.
Can I just say, somebody in the NBA needs to call Parker and say, hey, buddy, you want to come work for us? Like, just do that. Just the front office do that, please. Somebody.
I'm not going to say anything.
What?
Speak any further. Let's go ahead and get to the hot 3. We'll come back here in just a second.
Looking for an alternative to alcohol or conventional medicine? Check out Ounce of Hope, a Memphis-based dispensary with 2 local stores in the Sanderland Center and on South Cooper Street. You can get all the products you need in a location convenient to you. Each store offers an intentional shopping experience with dedicated bud tenders to answer all of your questions, from product selection and mushroom blends to our personal favorite, the Delta 9 seltzers. You gotta try the Peach Buzz. Try Ounce of Hope at either one of their 2 Memphis stores or at www.ounceofhope.com for convenient product shipped right to your door. Use the promo code BluffCity for 15% off any order, excluding sale items. Cannot be used in conjunction with other promotions or discounts. One use per customer.
Does the league look at these Achilles? Do they look at Tatum, Tyrese, Dame? Do they look at these and they're like, maybe they're playing too? I mean, they're not going to shorten the season after that. I mean,
there's too much money tied up for the league in advertisement revenue and ticket sales. There's too much money tied up for the players. For all of our advancements in sports nutrition and taking care of your body and that sort of stuff. Like, at the end of the day, it's human tissue, right? And it's going to tear, it's going to break. For ankle sprains, that's easier to say because it's a lateral movement and a shoe will kind of hold and support some of that lateral movement. This is a true up and down, jump and catch. It's hard to stabilize that with a shoe or taping or a brace. I do think there needs to be, similar to a concussion almost, if they can have an Achilles tendon protocol that you have to be able to check so many boxes and have
you don't go back in
pain and this until you go back in. I think something like that is coming.
Tune into The Daily Grind with your host, Lute Hatmaker, every Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. In the heart of the Highland Strip for 27 years, Trilogy Tattoo has helped tell stories for Memphians for generations. Located at 530 South Highland, Richie and his team are waiting to help you tell yours.
From tattoos to piercings, your body art should be as unique as you are. Voted a Memphis Flyer top 3 tattoo shop in the city of Memphis since day one. Your story will be safe here at Trilogy Tattoo.
Open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 11 to 11, and 3 to 11 on Sundays. They have convenient times waiting on you. Let Trilogy Tattoo help you tell your story. Hey, let's get after it, man. Hey, I want to do a quick update before we get to the Hot 3. Gabe and I are St. Louis Cardinal fans, baby.
Yes, sir. We're playing better.
Hey, guess what? I want to update. Guess what the score is tonight? They're playing.
I hope
Chicago
they're kicking
Cubs.
the Cubs' ass.
They are up 6-1.
That's
up
beautiful.
6-1. And guess what?
Who's been doing the damage? That's
The
what we
very
do.
guy that you hated on in the green room.
Okay, no, hold up. This was all fair. So you
Oh,
didn't
my
even
bad.
have to bring this up.
Oh, my bad. My apologies.
But okay, Brendan Donovan has a bomb. Alec Burleson has a bomb too.
Newt Bar has a bomb. Let's go.
Hell yeah. Well, okay, and to be clear, what I said about Brendan Donovan, I wasn't hating on him. I'm just saying, if he's like the guy you're relying on,
Hey.
getting into a playoff series,
Hey.
I just don't know if that's something I can.
It's not what
I
you're
can
looking
end
for?
my season on. I don't know if that's something I can trust.
Well,
It's a little bit of fool's gold, but you know what? I'll take fool's gold over what we had last year.
that's right.
That's what I can say.
This team is a feisty team.
Yes.
They came into this year, the St. Louis Cardinals came into this year with a bunch of guys starting pitching going, who? And they have been doing pretty well. They've been doing pretty well.
Well, their pitching is the thing that's more fool's gold than anything else, by far. I mean, seriously. There was during that 18-5 stretch, they had a MLB best 2.82 ERA in their starting rotation. And it's like freaking Eric Fetty. Who?
Who?
Matt Liberatore.
Who?
Like, exactly. Andre Palante.
Who?
Exactly. Yeah. But either way, let's move on.
Let's go. Let's
wanna
get
hear
to the
from
hot three. Listen, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Jon Jones has retired from the UFC. And I told you and Christian this months ago that he was going to never fight Tom Aspinall because he's afraid of Tom Aspinall. Tell me I'm wrong, Gabe, with what we're seeing.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, sure. I don't know how to feel. Like, this is one of those things where it's hard because, like, Jon Jones is the undisputed GOAT. Like, no questions asked. I don't give a damn who you are.
I disagree.
Who is?
Absolutely GSP at this point. Now, based on what Jon Jones has just done, GSP.
Either way, I think he's whatever. If he's 1 or 2 on your, would he be 2 behind GSP?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, he's one of the all-time greats, absolute legend. So like, you want to sit here and praise, like, bid farewell, legend, hell of a career, man. But it's like the way he's going out, it's sad, Kenny. It really is sad as hell. I get he wanted the Pereira fight. I know that the UFC wanted the Aspinall fight because of how much buzz has been created about it online. He clearly didn't want it at this point in his career. I personally,
why did he not want it? Why did he not want it?
I think it's twofold. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze to him.
He got the money.
Tom Aspinall is not the type of figure that Alex Pereira is. Also, at the same time, Tom Aspinall is more likely to beat him. So I think he was in legend mode where I want to fight other legends. I don't think Tom Aspinall's on that level, and I'm taking an unnecessary risk against a guy who I don't think's on my level from a legendary status standpoint. So that's what I think, really, if you're being honest with yourself, this is about. I agree to a certain extent with your sentiment about, like, he's ducking Tom Aspinall. Like, I agree 100%. With you. But at the same time, like, I don't fault his line of reasoning as soft as I think it kind of is. Like, I just don't, we know Jon Jones is the guy that doesn't duck anybody in the heavyweight division. In the light heavyweight division. That's
he ducked.
But either way, like, we don't know him as a guy who's ducking smoke. And it feels like he is absolutely ducking smoke with Tom Aspinall.
Because what excuse can he have outside of the fact that the UFC is saying this is the biggest fight we can make for you? Alex Pereira, you can say all day long, is a legend. He's also not a champion. He just lost the light heavyweight championship.
I know.
So his luster has been taken off, right? Ain't nobody talking about Alex Pereira right now. Guess who everybody is talking about? They're talking about Tom Aspinall, because he is one of those guys that could not only is he the holder of the interim championship, he's a guy who can absolutely, with his size and his speed, his athleticism and his power, beat Jon Jones. And so from the beginning, I told y'all, and y'all made fun of me, man. Y'all blasted me for an hour saying that it's not because he's scared. It is 100%. He asked for a certain amount of money to fight Tom Aspinall. UFC said, you know what? This is the biggest fight we can make. So let's get him that money. And guess what? They did. They got him the money, and he still turned it down.
Can we have the even tougher conversation to have?
Man, we need to, bro.
UFC is in a bad spot.
They're cooked, man. They're
in a really horrible spot. Ever since Conor backed out of his fight, Jon Jones got injured, they have been in the gutter. These cards have not been hitting. They don't have star power on the level that they should. They wanted they need personalities. That's what the UFC, like, yeah, you've had, some personalities that can't really live up to the snuff, ever be a champion. But you've also had some champions that are just unbelievable personalities. And I don't think the personalities that they have, Sean O'Malley and Paddy the Baddy, they're just not quite on that level. Now, Paddy's got an opportunity. I just don't buy it yet. I have to see it to believe it. And Sean's just, he's not quite. He can't beat Merab. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just think they have a big issue on their hands that they're going to have to solve.
You know,
I don't know how you solve it. Like they've tried. I think they've upped their deal to more Dana White Contender Series, giving out more contracts.
Crazy.
That's not the answer. I can tell you
That's
that
not
right
the
now.
answer.
Although, like you have had some success stories with that, but like the biggest one is Sean O'Malley himself, and it's like, to get that big of a success out of the Dana White Contender Series, that's sort of few and far in between, man. To find a champion out of the Dana White Contender Series, just not usually how that works.
What the problem is, the UFC is experiencing what the Memphis Grizzlies have experienced for years, and that's they've constantly doubled down on youth, right? and I think that what you're doing is by saying it's the same. Golly, the analogy is perfect. It's like you're trading away your best player and you're bringing in all these draft picks, and what do you do instead of going and saying, let's go get the best fighters possible? You then say, well, let's just double down on more Dana White Contender Series fights and get contracts in for guys that are going to be 3-4 years down the line until you see it pay off with mainstream success. Joe Rogan had a conversation years ago when the UFC, I just want to kind of give you a background on my UFC history real quick. I lived in China in 2007. The UFC started in 2003. And so when I was over in China, it's not illegal, but there are there are DVD shops everywhere in China where you can get every freaking movie you can ever think of on DVD. And they're done, and they're not, some of them bootleg. Are sketchy. They're bootleg DVDs.
Yeah.
I was in one of those bootleg DVD shops in Kunming, China, where I used to live. And I found I saw this big old like case, and it had UFC all over it. And it was UFC 1 to UFC 63. And it was all the DVDs, or 63 DVDs. And it was every single UFC from UFC 1 to UFC 63. And I bought it and I watched every single one of them, and I fell in love with the UFC.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that the UFC was struggling really bad. And then all of a sudden Joe Rogan got involved, and Dana White got involved. The Fertittas got involved, and it started to blow up. And Dana White, and I was going to get the clip, but we'd probably get this thing copywritten struck if we did. So I'm going to just tell you what he said. He was talking to a boxing promoter named Lou DiBella. You can look up the interview on YouTube and find it. And he says, he's talking about the growth of MMA and boxing and where boxing is at. And he said to Lou DiBella, this boxing promoter, Joe Rogan said, the problem with boxing is that the stars that you have right now are the only stars you're ever going to have. You have your Bernard Hopkins, you're going to have you have your Oscar De La Hoyas, you're going to have all this kind of stuff. And that's it. Everybody who wants to fight is going to come to the UFC. Right now, in the year of our Lord 2025, that prophecy is being fulfilled, but it's being fulfilled on the opposite side. Like, where are the stars for the UFC? Why is Jon Jones, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Nate Diaz, why are all these guys still the stars of the UFC when if everybody who wants to fight is coming to the UFC, they should never have an issue with star power. Who are the stars for the UFC? The biggest fight the UFC can make right now is Kayla Harrison and
Amanda Nunes.
That is sad.
That'd be a badass fight. Not hating.
I'm so down for that fight. But then you've got Francis Ngannou, who hasn't fought in 7 years after his dispute with the UFC, coming saying, I'll fight Tom Aspinall. Monster fight. Crazy fight. And Dana's like, no, I'm good. Like, it's just the UFC's in trouble, not because they're not going to go out of business. Their business is what it is. They are stamped, right? They are stamped as a company. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to put a lot of fights on, and it's going to be fun. The fights are going to be good too. The fights are good. Like, but the problem is they don't have any stars.
Yeah.
The stars are gone. And I don't know what they're going to do. That's where they're cooked.
I know that these are totally different situations, but they're having the problem that we thought the NBA would have post LeBron.
Yes.
But now you've seen it with the NBA. Everybody always complained, like, what are they going to do after Steph and LeBron retire? Well, you've had, there's Tyrese Haliburton, there's Jason Tatum, there's Anthony Edwards, there's Ja, there's all these different names. I'm serious when I say I just don't know who that next big time champion is in the UFC. That every appointment television. Conor McGregor was at, Francis Ngannou was at, Jon Jones was at, Nate Diaz had that.
Even Daniel
Cormier, even
non-champions
had that at point.
Yes, they had so
and it's
many.
like there's just no one. There's no one I can think of off the top of my head that does it.
Do you think the UFC is concerned that they have, for the first time since I think 2013, this is the first time they haven't had a single United States born champion? Is that a problem for the UFC?
I think there may be some truth to that. Although, look at the biggest champions all time, or the most popular fighters all time. Like Conor McGregor is probably number one there.
Yeah,
and he's Irish guy. I don't know.
Maybe
I just think it depends about the personality you are.
Yeah,
and what you put on. I think if you change that to English speaking country, that may sound kind of weird.
Yeah.
A little bit weird, but maybe that's what you're trying to get at. But I don't think that's some grand issue that they have. I just think it's the lack of personality and lack of engaging fighters.
Yeah. Do you think that the style that it seems like, and it started with Khabib, do you think that the rise of the Dagestani, Kazakhstan, Georgian wrestler fighter dominating the UFC is a problem?
I think that, yeah. And the other part of that, those guys rarely have any personality.
None
at all.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's a double. Yes. I think I could get there with you.
Mm-hmm.
Get there with you. They're great fighters.
Crazy.
Great fighters. They're just
great.
not
Fantastic. Yeah.
Their
style's not
but it's
pleasing.
kind of like the product with boxing when counter striking took over completely. It's like people just don't like to see defensive fighters as much in boxing, whereas in the UFC they just want see people strike each other.
Yeah.
They want to see knockouts. They want to see roll around on the ground for 5 rounds.
I agree. I mean, listen, I'm a massive UFC fan and I hope that they get some stars, but it's a big issue, man. This is a big issue for the UFC. And I think it's one of the reasons why you've seen Dana White go, I'm going to start Power Slap and I'm going to start start Zuffa boxing and I'm going to start this and I'm going to go do this. And it's just is he kind of on the way out too? Is there a part of him that's yeah, man, this thing is a machine. It can go on its own. But who am I going to build? Who's Dana White going to build up? Right.
Kind of random thought, but they entered in with that WWE holding company, right?
Yeah. They're the parent company of it. Yeah.
Haven't they I don't know if there's any, somebody would have to educate me on this, but they've kind of gone downhill since then.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Most people would tell
it's
you.
Just I don't know what the correlation is.
Yeah.
Most people would correlation.
Yeah. A lot of people, and I don't know the correlation either, but a lot of people have said that I've read, people in the know that are, media members and all that kind of stuff have said UFC really went downhill when TKO took over.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Shout out Jon Jones. Stop leaving the scene of traffic accidents, please.
Yeah, stop doing that too. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. Anyway, all right. Second topic. Game 7 happened last night. This is Monday night. We're recording Sunday night. Game 7 of the NBA Finals. OKC defeated Indiana to win a championship. Gabe, what were your thoughts about this series? This unpredictable series all over again, right?
It's unpredictable until the end, brother.
Yeah.
Unpredictable. Well, I guess the next thing we'll talk about was somewhat predictable, but we'll wait for that. I feel like we were robbed because of Tyrese Haliburton's injury. Again, we'll elaborate on that in a bit. But I want to give the tip of the cap to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
They earned it. They're the best team all year. I don't think they're a team we need to overdo it with, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need to like put them in 2015 Warriors class or the Warriors dynasty. I don't need, like, this team was great. They won 84 games. They're one of 3 teams ever to do that, along with 2 Michael Jordan Bulls teams. Like, I respect all that, but they're not overly exciting. I feel like at times they can be predictable offensively, because SGAs dribble, get fouled, dribble, get fouled.
Yeah.
Like, they're not that fun to watch at times. Jalen Williams, he can be exciting at times, but also he's very up and down.
Yeah.
But one thing I will give them credit for, and I mean all-time credit for, they are one of the best defenses we have seen in NBA history. And we can sit here and talk about their physicality and how they got away with things, but I think it takes a skill.
Yeah.
I think it takes good game planning, good coaching to be able to get away with certain things.
Yeah.
And they did that pretty consistently. They led the NBA playoffs history. They are the all-time leader in turnover differential, and they're the all-time leader by a landslide. They're plus 133. They had 133 more turnovers than they gave up. Right, against the teams they played. You know who second all-time in a playoff run was? 2019 Raptors at plus 79. So they literally lapped the field there.
So crazy.
They were 1 in defensive rating all year, 1 in points per game allowed. They just have great perimeter defenders who can recover at a high level. They communicated at a different level. On the inside, it's just so hard to blow by any of their perimeter defenders, whether it be SGA, Jalen Williams, Caruso.
Yeah.
You just keep going down that list. And then when you do get there, here's Chet Holmgren with 5 blocks in a Game 7, setting the record for the Game 7s all time with blocks. So that's what I'll give them all-time credit for. I think they're an all-time defense. I don't think they're like an all-time team. Now, here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Is this the first of a few?
I mean, I think the window is obviously wide open for them for the next couple of years. I think at some point, here's my prediction. I think Chet Holmgren is going to be one of the best players in the NBA in a couple of years. I think he is so good. And so he's going to get a big contract, and you're going to have to make some really hard decisions.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Continue.
You disagree?
I think he with this Thunder team, with what we know about the CBA, unless he takes some drastic pay cut, I think he may be the odd one left out.
Maybe that could be true.
That's what I think it may turn into, because he's probably going to command a max contract.
Dude,
but can they reasonably give SGA $76 million per year, Jalen Williams what he's going to be owed on a super max because he was all NBA, and then Chet? I think there's a clear order of operation here, and you have to have SGA and J-Dub.
I don't know. I think I might take Chet over J-Dub. If I have to make that choice, I might take Chet over J-Dub.
I don't know, man. Okay.
All right. So I think you got some real serious questions that it be asked. The problem is they got 74 draft picks over the next 3 years.
I was just saying, what's great about them and why I think we could end up in a multiple championship situation. 12 draft picks, including 15 and 24 this year. 12 draft picks until 2031. Nikola Topic has yet to even suit up. He was a projected top 5 pick last year. Right. Missed the whole season. He's going to be playing in Summer League here soon. They don't have to deal with any contract situation until 26-27. So after next year. And literally, I need people to go check this out. Just if you want to fact check me, this is the truth. Every single player rostered on their roster this year is under contract for next year.
Yeah.
Every last one of them.
Yeah. No,
under contract for next year. Yeah. So if they wanted to literally take the championship winning team
and run it back,
throw it back out there, that's what they could do.
Yeah.
But here's where I get hesitant with just doing this is, one, the CBA can get restrictive. So, okay, they can win 2 in a row, but what about 3? What about, like, are they going to get to 3 or 4 or 5? Like that's hard to project with the new CBA and how it restricts you and your luxury tax situation. And then I saw this stat, and I thought this was telling. The Oklahoma City Thunder were plus 220. They're now plus 220 to repeat next year. Plus 220 to win the NBA Finals. They have the shortest odds since the 2018-19 Warriors. What's notable about that 2018-19 Warriors team? They were minus 168 to win the whole thing. So very short odds, overwhelming favorite. They lost to the Raptors in 6 because KD tore his Achilles and Klay Thompson tore his ACL.
Yep.
That's why, precisely why, it's so hard to project dynasties or project, hey, this team's going to repeat.
Yeah.
Because I thought that about the Celtics after last year. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be able to repeat this year. And what happens? Tatum tears his Achilles. Now they're going to have to blow the whole operation up.
Feels like it. Feels like they are.
I don't know. Like this window, they got their one, but you never know when a window closes. You don't know who's going to regress. You don't know who's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
So
I would say based on
say they have all the makings to be a dynasty.
Well,
but you have to go be a dynasty.
The thing about, like, we can sit here and we can break down all the uncontrollable things that could possibly happen to the Oklahoma City Thunder and say, well, the odds are stacked against them. Based on the controllable things that they have in place, they have everything in place to be a dynasty.
They've done everything right.
Yeah.
But again,
there's some uncontrollable
things you can't control. Speaking of which, topic number 3, Jesus Christ, man. What was that? Like, let me be honest with you. In your opinion, was watching Tyrese Haliburton fall on the floor immediately was that one of the most like gut-wrenching injury situations? I was physically hurt.
Yeah.
Like the pit of my stomach.
Yeah.
Like just like, why? And he was cooking. Like before Tyrese got hurt, I fully expected the Pacers to win that game.
Did you really?
Yes, absolutely. Tyrese was 3 for 5 from 3. He was cooking. And it's going to be one of, like, for my lifetime, might be one of the biggest could have been in NBA Finals history for me.
Wow.
Like, I truly, like, usually you don't remember who lost or really pay attention to that. I'll remember this one. Yeah. I'll remember who lost. Yeah. Not more than who won. I know some people have been making that case, but I'll remember this Pacers team and Tyrese Haliburton, what he was able to do in this run. But he'll be out most of next year and all of next year.
All of next year. Everything has to go perfectly for him to be back by the finals if they make it there.
What about the Eastern Conference, though?
Yeah, dude. So you're talking, I mean, what would be your mainstays, right? Like Boston would be your mainstay. Indiana would be your mainstay. Cleveland would be your mainstay. But you got 3 of their 3 top players on their teams injured.
Tatum, gone. So count the Celtics out.
Right.
Of actual title contention.
100%.
Darius Garland out for the first part of the season. Plus, Donovan Mitchell's never made it past the second round.
Right.
So I would count them. I mean, they're going to be good. They'll probably be the 1 seed, but I wouldn't count them out of title contention, but they're going to be struggling. Haliburton out of title contention completely without Haliburton. Let's keep going down the list here. Knicks don't have a coach. They're actually in prime position, though. Correct? Like, I don't see why they wouldn't be in prime position.
Talked about this on the 2 Buck Sports Show yesterday, and I just think it is wild to me how badly the Knicks have, like, squandered the expectation and anticipation for what they have, right? Like, how do you fire a coach? I get firing. I was a proponent of firing Tom Thibodeau because I felt like he took them as far as he could. But how do you fire a coach who just took your team to the Eastern Conference Finals without a game plan for action, a game plan for
what's crazy to me, too? They landed every big name trade target that they wanted.
They wanted. They got them. They got them all.
OG, McHale, Cat. Right. They got everybody they wanted. They have like a star roster. 1
Right.
through 5, basically. Besides Josh Hart, 1 through 4, 4 of their top 5.
Yeah,
are
but Josh
stars.
Hart is awesome for what he does. I know he
he's
takes
great.
too many
I'm-
shots,
but
but he's
like,
yeah.
it's crazy. And I know they haven't won since 73 or whatever, but it's crazy the expectation and the view of them versus the actual talent that they have and what we thought of them before they were New York Knicks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's
Like McHale was like that get over
Yeah.
the top piece. OG Anunoby for years was the get over the top piece. Karl Anthony Towns, we didn't even know he was available.
We didn't
but
know he
damn,
was
that's
available.
multiple time All-Star, multiple time All-NBA guy.
in the perfect
Jalen
fit.
Brunson,
In
like,
the perfect
looking-
fit.
Looking at the view of them now that they're together versus what those individual pieces were at their last stop, it's kind of amazing to think about.
Yeah, but they're still good together. Like those
Yes,
guys
they
are good
are.
together. And if they had any semblance of a game plan in terms of what they wanted to do with their head coach, then I would tell you the New York Knicks are the prohibitive favorites going into next season
But-
in the Western Conference.
Or
But
the
what
Eastern-
if they end up with Taylor Jenkins as their head coach? Like, what are we doing, guys? Like your game plan.
Or
Leon
Mike
Rose,
Brown? Those are their
Like-
two leading candidates. What does that do for me?
Leon Rose and the owner Dolan. Your game plan was to fire Tom Thibodeau, the guy who took your team to the highest of heights outside of getting to the NBA Finals, to fire him, and then just start making phone calls. Hey, Minnesota Timberwolves.
Is Quinn
Hey,
Snyder available?
Dallas Mavericks. Hey, Atlanta Hawks.
available?
Hey, Ime Udoka, are you available? Hey, are you available? It's like, what are you guys doing? And now your two number one options are Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown.
Hell yeah. Shout out.
Shout out.
So Eastern Conference playoffs, we had 3 Achilles injuries, all number 0. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
That's a wild thing.
That's wild.
Damian Lillard, who's old, which
Old.
it happens. Jason Tatum
Yeah.
and Tyrese Haliburton, all of them reported calf strains before they tore their Achilles. And we can date this back to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had the same thing, had a calf strain, took 2 games off in the finals, came back, tore it completely. What do you think needs to be done? Because obviously
Yeah.
these guys are Jason Tatum and Tyrese Haliburton are 27 years of age or younger.
Right.
It's not good for the NBA to have their young stars go down with potentially career-altering injuries in their 20s. That's not a good thing. And we know about pace. We know how much more ground they have to cover, not just up and down the floor, but on the defensive end, rotations and how quickly and how quick twitch you have to move. That's it's a lot more than it ever has been.
Yeah.
We know they're not shortening the season.
Nope.
We know that they have a problem with load management. There's a 65 game minimum in the CBA to get awards and extra money, quite frankly, for all NBA. So it's like I'm sitting here and I'm like, I feel like something needs to be done, but I don't know what you can do.
It was so funny to me last night or on Sunday night as the injury was being reported. You started to see all the think pieces and the Twitter accounts and all the basketball nerds start talking about what does the NBA need to do?
Yeah.
And I've seen some crazy shit. Are you ready for some of this? Obviously, load management was a big part of it. Show me the study where load management reduces injury, because we're in the middle of the load.
Worse.
We're in the middle of load management era right now, and has it gotten better or worse? It's gotten worse. They're not going to change the games, but that was one thing. They're not going to change the amount of games. They're not going to shorten games. That's not going to happen.
They're not shortening the season either.
I saw they need to change the floor to what? To grass? Like what are you
Like a wrestling mat? Like, what do you want them to do, man?
What are you changing the floor to? Like, I've seen so many different things, and I am fundamentally, I don't think you can do anything to change injuries. Injuries happen. Anthony said this on his show on Monday. What if this is just a sign? Bodies ain't meant to do this shit, bro.
Yeah, I got pointed in the right direction on this, and I swear to you, this is like a basketball trainer's nightmare, what I'm about to say. But the way they're training these guys in certain aspects,
Yeah,
the body's not supposed to contort or move that way.
it's just not.
And have you ever heard? You know what a negative step is when you're
Oh yeah,
offense,
yeah.
when you're trying to get a quick blow by,
yeah,
take a quick step back and then jab and go.
yeah.
That is how Tyrese got his injury. That's how Jason Tatum got his injury. That's how Kevin Durant got his injury. And Dame Lillard, he was going after a rebound, but it was a negative step.
Right.
Like he stepped back to go try to knock a rebound back into his teammates' hands. And it's like, I don't know. Like the way they're training these guys, they're basically telling them, like, get your shin parallel to the floor so you can blow by this guy. I don't know if a body's meant to contort that way.
It's not. It's clearly not. And I'm not a doctor. We do have a doctor on Bluff City Media staff. Rusty Witten is a doctor of physical therapy. He has been doing this. This was his career. And he brought up an interesting point. And I
heard this.
I would love to have him on the show at some point and talk about it. But and I'm sure he did you can go on Bluff City Media's YouTube network. He did a whole Ask Dr. Buckets segment. It's like 7 minutes long where he talks about this. I don't know how this exactly works, but I think it's interesting. I think it is very clear that your leg muscles and your tendons and your ligaments are all attached to each other and they're all connected, right? It does feel like that calf muscle strains are having an impact on torn Achilles tendons, right? Like that's the three ones that we can think of, the major ones in the last couple of years have been because of calf strains of that big calf muscle in the back of your leg not being healed properly that causes extra strain on that tendon that connects your calf to your ankle. And so he mentioned and he proposed an idea of maybe putting together some sort of calf strain protocol, some Achilles protocol, kind of like a concussion protocol, where there's certain markers that you have to hit, even if you're feeling better. Like when someone gets a concussion in football, they have to go through light tests. You know, are you dizzy? Are you experiencing this? Like, are you experiencing pain? Like, here's some workouts you have to do. Can you get through these without experiencing symptomatic, situations? Like, can you experience this? Those markers they have to hit to be able to be allowed back on the field. What if there's something like that in the NBA where there's certain protocols you have to hit with your calf, whatever that looks like, jumping exercises, running up and down the floor, whatever it may be, before you're allowed to come back on the floor? Because these, as he said, and I agree with him, these are catastrophic career-changing injuries. Yeah. And so are you willing?
We've gotten better at it over the years at taking care of them, to be fair. But I completely agree. You don't know what that person is going to look like on the other side.
You don't know. So maybe something like that. I don't know.
I'm not going to argue with the doctor. Okay. First of all, I would have questions though.
Yeah, of course.
Like sometimes when you're getting close to back, it's about pain tolerance. One, players could tell you they're not experiencing any symptoms just to get back on the floor. So there's that, and we know that they're competitors, or else Tyrese Haliburton wouldn't have been out there for Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Right.
So there's that, and also I think the other thing, and I'm not saying this is like an idea that you just throw out. I know that the NBA can't afford anymore to have star players off the court when they're seemingly healthy enough to play. I understand what it could lead to. We've seen it, but I don't know if that's something that they would even entertain.
How is the NFL
now
not gone through that same situation?
Real quick though, last thing. I don't want to overreact.
Okay,
I don't want to overreact to these Eastern Conference playoffs.
I agree with that.
But I am for solutions to injuries like the ones we saw to Jason Tatum and Tyrese Haliburton at their age. At their age, you shouldn't be having things like this pop up.
I'm in agreement.
But what'd you say about the NFL? Sorry.
Yeah, like how has the NFL not experienced that same level of like the potential of players using
they have a base. Okay, so you ever heard of the impact test? Impact testing?
Yes, I don't know exactly what it is, but I've heard of it.
So before every season, you get a impact test, and they give you a baseline, and you like memorize shapes and stuff like that. So you would memorize shapes, and you get a baseline level for where you were normally operating, with no concussion. And when you're coming back from a concussion,
you got to reach.
You have to pass that and get back to your baseline before you get on to the field. So it's a lot more measurable in the concussion space.
That makes sense.
Now, here's where you could get more measurable. What did the NFL do? They invested in concussion-related research and went out of their way to do it. Maybe you could do that with the Achilles tendon to see what you could do to mitigate issues like that. And then you could create a protocol. But the amount of research put into concussions in the NFL
was a fight. Let's not forget.
It was a fight for a long time, but the amount they've sunk into it at this point definitely supersedes anything they've done for that type of injury in the NBA.
Totally understand that. And I think I'm with you in that I don't want to overreact. Right. Like, I don't want to overreact to this.
But it's hard not to overreact to seeing guys under the age of 30 get injuries that may
change their
render them half of what they once were.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't want that's not good.
Yeah,
these are two guys. Jason Tatum and him and Tyrese Haliburton, for better or worse, have just as good a case as anybody in the NBA at being the next face of the NBA.
100%.
So it's like it's
tough.
You
man.
Can't have that happen to those guys.
Yeah, I don't think you can load manage it.
Previously, Brandon Roy at one point went down with an injury, was never the same.
I don't think you can load manage. I don't think you can load manage Achilles injuries out of the NBA. But I do wonder if there's some kind of scientific research, some kind of study, some kind of testing they could do to make these players more safe. I've seen people talk about shoes. Can the shoes help? And Rusty put it perfectly. Shoes that they design now are meant to help the side-to-side actions with the ankles, not the up and down catch that the Achilles tendon does. And there's just not really a way to. He talked about it. There's not really a way to stabilize that. There's not really a way to tape it. There's not really a way to. It just happens. And so, again, I don't want to overreact to a situation and say, well, this is what they need. They need change the games to 64 games a year. Come on, man. It's not going to help. But
and it's not going to happen.
No, it's
too
much money.
When we talk about shortening the season, I wish people would stop talking about it, because it's like the dream you had last night. It's just a dream.
It's just a pipe dream.
It's never going to happen.
It's an ounce of hope pipe dream.
There's too much. There's too much money invested. Amount of game, you have to fill everybody's quota.
Right.
When it comes to TV, and how many games are getting until they rewrite contracts. So,
yep.
They just signed a $76 billion deal.
He asked a good question. Rusty did in the Daily Grind show. If an employer, an NFL employee, a team came to you and said, Gabe, we'll pay you this amount of money. We're only going to play 12 games this year instead of 16 games this year. But we're going to cut your pay 20%. Would you say, nah, man?
No.
Let's keep my money where it is.
Let's keep that up.
And let's play 16.
Which I always get a kick out of that, man. You could. People are like, they're losing out on money, players. It's like, well, you know what they could do is take the same contract and give them better game checks for 76 games or 64 games or whatever. But
it's crazy.
I hear what you're saying. But we've gone long. Appreciate everybody for listening out there. If you haven't already, go like, subscribe, leave a comment. Leave a comment right here for the On the Bluff podcast. But check out all of our great podcasts. You got the Daily Grind, you got the Anthony Sane Show, No Bluff, and so many different options.
Have a good time over here, man.
To go take advantage of at Bluff City Media. But you know what? We're going to say peace until next week.
Damn it. Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.